It's March 1865. General Johnston is in Smithfield, North Carolina. General Sherman's army is starting to come together. At this moment in time, they're 60,000 strong. General Johnston has just over 20,000 men. They're concentrated here throughout the town in Smithfield. He knows he has to fight. He sends word back to Robert E. Lee that he's going to fight at a place near Bennetville. I did.
Oh man, I felt that. I feel that, man. I feel that.
Yeah. Well, everybody, welcome to the chat today. We're talking to Project Past. Threw a clip out there so everybody could see one of my recent mistakes, and we're kind of gonna loosely talk here back and forth about what it is that we do whenever we create videos. And one of those things that I highlight a lot is my mistakes. You go into for example, for this particular clip, I was at Bennett Place covering Bennett Place, and I'm moving up from Bentonville, and I'm sitting here I took 6 clips of this thing trying to discuss what happened. And every time it would roll off the top of my tongue, Bennetville. And then finally at the end there, I was like, I can't believe I just did this, But again and again, it happens over and over. I don't know what to say about that.
There's something about when you hit record, I forget how to speak. I go to the battlefield with talking points and scripts, and okay, this is how I'm going to open, and I got it all in my head. Flip the camera on, I hit record, and I'm like, I don't even know where I am right now. Like, why am I here? It just never fails.
Oh yeah, definitely. And then and for me too, it's almost like I get nervous a little bit when I'm talking out there in front of people, and I'm just a nobody with a camera walking around, and I kind of feel silly because I'm talking to this gimbal in front of everybody, and then all of these people are they stop because they're curious, what is this guy doing over there? And I don't know, it's just there's something about it just kind of silly itself. But so let's start from the beginning here. How did you get into creating content for YouTube? I know your channel started back in what, 2021?
21, yeah. So like most people probably in our history community, as a kid, my dad popped in Gettysburg. I was, I don't know, maybe first grade. And from then on, I was hooked. It's been military history all through my childhood into my adulthood. Instead of watching cartoons, I was watching classics like Civil War Combat, Tales of the Gun, Weapons at War, shows that aren't on anymore. And, they were such gold. But yeah, so it always stuck with me. Graduated high school. And I've always had that love for history. I've gone to battlefields, but I just didn't know what to do with it, and I didn't really have any hobbies. I would go to work and come home and watch some history stuff. And that was really it. And, I came across, it's a smaller YouTube channel. You probably haven't heard of it. The History Underground. I think he's in the chat. Tiny YouTube channel, but I came across his channel during COVID.
Yeah.
And I was like, one, he's very normal, like you can relate to him. So it kept me wanting to watch him. And then also he was covering some really good things. His cinematography was incredible, and he was just a really good storyteller. So I felt like, at the time I'd never met this guy before, but I felt like I knew him. Yeah. So going to all these sites, and my wife and I, it was during COVID. So we're like, hey, when this is over, let's do like a East Coast road trip. She's a history teacher, so she's in the history. So I started doing research, and, that's how I came across JD's videos, some DC stuff. And, my wife is like, you love history. You go to battlefields. Why don't you do this? I was like, are you just trying to get me out of the house? So yeah, it kind of just evolved for that. We had the idea, I made the name and stuff, and I didn't do anything with it. And finally one day she was out of town. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to a site and I'm going to hit record and see what happens. Really had no direction, no goal for the channel. My first, I don't know. I mean, all my videos make me nauseous when I go back and watch them, but my first 20 or 30 make me really sick. So just if you're going to watch my channel, don't watch the first 30 videos. But because I just didn't know. It's a learning process. You know, I would go to a site and do a little talking and film some stuff, read some signs, and I was editing all on my phone, and I was running out of storage. And fast forward 3 years later, and I'm surprised that 11,000 people take the time out of their busy schedules to watch what I have to say. It's been incredible. I've learned so much, and I truly, you know, when I first started this, I didn't really know how much I liked the personal stories until I started doing the research and then going to these sites, and the channel's kind of evolved into, you know, when I go to Gettysburg, I don't talk about the battle as a whole. I break it down. We talk about the Herbst Woods. You know, we're going to talk about the 26th North Carolina today. We're going to talk about the Iron Brigade.
Right.
We're going to the Railroad Cup. We're just going to talk about Rufus Dawes and the 6th Wisconsin. You know, like you just break it down to those small sections, and within those regiments, you know, you have a couple hundred individual stories.
Right.
So, I mean, think about a battle of Gettysburg. You have hundreds of thousands of stories. Most will never know, but you know, some we're going to learn, and that's what I really enjoy sharing. I feel like, you know, my goal is to learn these personal stories and then obviously share them with all of you, but I want to create a connection with the viewer as well. Like I want them to feel like they're at the battlefield with me, watching it from their living room. And that's been kind of like my main goal. And that's where we're at now as a channel.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and you know, I mean, I'm kind of in the similar facet as you were, as far as JD is concerned, watching his channel during COVID and all that stuff. And you know, and myself, I was in the military for a very long time, and you know, my wife was encouraging me to do the same thing too. But I was like, babe, you know, I really can't pop on YouTube and start making videos while I'm in the service. So but then it was my last few months, and I go up to Gettysburg, and I run into JD of all people, and I'm like, holy crap, it's this guy I've been watching about this whole time, you know?
Yeah.
I go over there like I don't know, like a fanboy, I guess, and it's a weird thing, you know, because he's like a regular normal guy just like us, and he's doing a YouTube channel just like we are, but you meet that person that you admire his work, and he basically, you know, kind of inspired me to do the same thing. And he's definitely been a fun guy to talk to throughout this whole thing. With going to these battlefields, I find personally that my knowledge of the Civil War, for example, was pretty good. But when I go to a battlefield and I have to prepare to create these videos to try to tell a story, maybe a personal story of a soldier or a story of a battle in totality, that I take something back from it. And all of a sudden, my memory bank is now filled up with information that I never had before. And I can stand in these places and kind of visualize a little bit better every time I go to these places. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, you can read about, you know, just to get it. We'll keep using Gettysburg. Gettysburg is, you know, that polarizing place. You know, you can read about Pickett's Charge, and, you know, we've all seen the movie, and it's obviously a very sanitized version, but it gives us a visual.
Yeah.
And then you can read about it. But when you go there, what always jumps out to me is the terrain. You know, you can learn about the individuals and things like that in a book, but you can't truly visualize the terrain until you're physically walking on that ground. And when you're making, you know, following in the footsteps of Pickett's Charge, and you're kind of going down in a depression, and then you're kind of coming back up a little bit, and then you're dipping down a little bit more. Then you get to the Emmitsburg Road, and you see it's a gradual incline. And you're like, I understand why this was just absolute carnage. Obviously, walking across open ground to a fortified position, you're always going to suffer heavy casualties, but you can truly see the scope of what happened when you're physically walking the ground and seeing the terrain. Culp's Hill's another place. You know, you think, okay, it's a hill, but when you're there, you're like, oh my God, like how did anyone survive? And that's what always jumps out to me is like, you know, you can read about it, but until you're there, it's a huge piece of the puzzle for me is seeing the terrain and how even the defenders utilized it.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, and a big part of all of this is preservation, battlefield preservation. I know the American Battlefield Trust has done a lot of good work with that. And here soon, there's going to be an event that's going on, the Gettysburg Film Festival, May 8th through the 11th. It's coming up here pretty soon. And Adams County Historic Society is one of the real big reasons for a lot of preservation that's going on up there, and the telling of the story, the complete story, not just a story of just the soldiers. They talk about the citizens and the people in that town and the sacrifices that they made while they were there during that battle and the aftermath of the battle as well.
Mhm.
Um, what are your associations with any preservation groups? Do you have any particular ones that you work with?
I'm a member of the trust. I try to donate as much as I can,
Yep.
even if it's just, $20 here and there. I know I always, if I have a little extra, that's usually where it's going. I
Yeah.
live in St. Augustine, and there's a few historical societies and things of that nature.
Okay.
Actually, Fort Mose, which is essentially an outpost just outside of the city of St. Augustine, they
Yep.
just reconstructed a full version of Fort Mose. And the unique thing about Fort Mose is it was considered the first free black settlement in what would become the United States.
Yeah.
Escaped slaves from the southern English colonies would escape to Spanish Florida, and in turn, the Spanish would have for your freedom. You can convert to Catholicism, and then you can help defend the city. And they established that outpost there, and they just finished a brand new reconstruction of Fort Mose. So I've donated to them a few times. I haven't been there yet. It's literally I think May 9th is the day it opens.
That's
But
cool.
yeah, and Alusty have the Alusty organization, which is close by. It's about an hour away. I don't know the progress of where they're at on that visitor center. I know they want to put one there, but any chance I get, I try to donate to something. I have a Patreon, and usually, at least once a month, I try to take some of those funds that are helping me out to give back to other historical sites and things of that nature.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I always encourage people. I know a lot of people hear donations and stuff like that, and they think, "Oh goodness, these organizations are asking for money." But
Mhm.
also, it's about time. It's about helping. The
Mhm.
National Park Service, for example, needs a lot of people to help them out, especially in these days. Volunteer work is a big thing. It's equity. Whenever you look at the national parks and you look at the various battlefields and state parks, those volunteers make a big difference in telling the story and helping to preserve these places as well. So
Absolutely.
whenever I get out there on the road and travel, I like to get in my car. I got my junk food, maybe I got the family with me, and I got that favorite song blasting on the radio, and I'm headed to whatever location. What's on your radio whenever you're heading down to a
Oh,
location?
I listen, when I say everything, it could be literally anything. I mean, I just snuck away to Chickamauga. We went to a family trip in Chattanooga,
Yeah.
just for a quick weekend, last weekend. And in the morning, while the wife slept in, I snuck away to Chickamauga for a couple hours. And literally, I was pulling in, listening to "In the Club" by 50 Cent. And as I was leaving, I was listening to some Russell Dickerson and some Morgan Wallen, like literally
Okay.
anything that can just get the head bumping a little bit. And then you pull up and turn off the car, and you're at this magical place, and you begin putting those puzzle pieces together. It's definitely, I'm a big music guy. So anything Metallica, Pearl Jam, Seven Dust, like I said, 50
Nice.
Cent, it's anything.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get in the rhythm when it comes to music too. The first time I went up to Gettysburg, my family's gonna hate this story. So the first time I went up to Gettysburg, I've got the kids in the back seat of the truck, and I drove probably 15 hours straight to get there. I was that
Oh,
excited to
wow.
get to Gettysburg,
Yeah.
and they suffered through it with me. We get there, and I come up over that ridge, and for the first time, I can see some monuments and statues, and I see various names that I'm starting to recognize, and streets that I'm recognizing, and I'm freaking out. And then
Mhm.
I pop in a Civil War CD. I've got the soundtrack of the American Civil War playing in the background, and I am ready to go with a kepi in hand and everything. I mean, it's time to go. And in the back seat are these two kids that are completely passed out. And the next thing I know, they pop up, and it's my daughters, and they're looking around. They're like, "Dad, you've got to turn the music down, Dad. We can't listen to this stuff all day." But before too long, they get into it also.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, it's pretty catchy. Like, I forgot what the song is. It's in Gettysburg. It's when the Iron Brigade's coming up into line of battle. I think it's like "Hell on a Wabash," I think is the song. Anytime I hear that song, just with it. You kind of get the chills. Like I was at the Illusti reenactment in February, and it's a pretty big deal. And you had Old Glory coming into the field with a regiment behind it, and you hear the drums playing. It's like, oh man, I'm like pumped. I mean, I would never want to be the drummer boy in a battle, but man, from watching it from the stands, I'm pumped.
Yeah, for sure. So
I got a
out of all
question
the
for
places,
you.
when
I got a question for you. So going to a battlefield again, Gettysburg. What's your first stop when you're pulling in? Like when you're pulling in, you've been driving, you're coming from the airport, wherever. What's your first stop before you hit the hotel?
Let me think about that. Usually my first stop and my last stop is the Copse of Trees.
Okay, it's a good one.
I like to go out there to the Copse of Trees and take in the silence. And usually it's either early in the morning or late in the evening when I'm taking in that silence, because there's something almost deafening.
It's eerie.
No pun intended about the silence. There's something deafening about it, because those fields are speaking volumes of stories and life and death and choices. But you're standing in that place, and that gentle breeze is blowing either on a hot summer's day or in a cold winter evening. And that silence, it just echoes and reverberates throughout your life. And every time you come back, there's something draws you to that place. You have to be there. You have to feel that silence. So that's probably one of the places. How about yourself?
It's eerie. So Gettysburg, my first stop is the 73rd New York in the Peach Orchard. Being a firefighter, I really like their story. Of course, their monument's awesome. I saw Dustin. He put Sheets. Sheets is a staple. It's a battlefield staple. You come out there, get some beef jerky, some Gatorade, maybe a Celsius. I'm a big caffeine guy.
Yeah.
But 73rd New York is my spot. It's just, again, you read about the Peach Orchard and things of that nature. And through doing research, I discovered the 73rd New York and their story, predominantly firefighters. And being a firefighter myself, it's really cool to be at that monument. Chickamauga, since I've been there now 3 or 4 times, I really love the Florida Monument right by the visitor center. So like usually that's where there's a parking spot right there. I usually just pull in, spend 5-10 minutes, take a few pictures. And one of the companies that was in the 3rd Florida that kind of came through that area on the 20th, September 20th in Stovall's brigade. They were the St. Augustine Blues. They mustered in St. Augustine. And they were there at Chickamauga. I don't know how many of them are left. This is, their 3rd year of fighting. But yeah, I have a few spots now. And of course, food's a staple too. I really like the upper crust in Gettysburg.
Yeah, I hear about that place. It's pretty popular.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hit up all those places too. And just like JD was talking about the ice cream shop there.
I've never been there actually.
Oh, you gotta go. Like, they used to allow you inside so you could sit at the tables and see the inside of the building. But I think during COVID, they stopped all of that. Now you line up outside to get the ice cream, but it's still pretty cool. The kids love that place. So,
I mean, I'm sold. It's ice cream.
Yeah, for sure. So you were talking about earlier, you were talking to me about a place to go and check out some stories and, get some information from. Do you have like a book that you're working with right now or something that you just started reading?
So really any of the emerging Civil War books in that series, I just went to Shiloh 2 weeks ago. So of course that I think it's Attack and Whip Them at Dawn is the emerging Civil War version. Bushwhacking on a Grand Scale is the emerging Civil War Chickamauga book. Actually, This one's pretty cool too. I got this one for Christmas. It's called Our Fathers at Shiloh. This is a really good one. There's even like QR codes, so you can take a picture. You read something, you can take a picture, and it'll pull it up on Google Maps for you, which is invaluable. Yeah. Especially when you're there, you're like, okay, so this happened. I'm in the right spot.
Yeah.
So anything emerging Civil War, it's like the perfect amount of details without drinking from a fire hose. So it's like still simple, but you're also getting good details from the battle. You're getting a little more than the bare bones. And it's just in the illustrations and the pictures. It's just, I can't recommend it enough.
Nice.
Yeah.
So recently I discovered this one myself. It's a
Virginia's
Historical Markers Guidebook. Like this book is something else. I'm telling you, like,
was it like 10,000 pages?
I mean, it's huge. It's a couple hundred pages at least, but there's a lot of markers throughout the state of Virginia, and that doesn't even include the Civil War trails markers. Have you ever gone out to some of those Civil War trail sites?
So I recently tried to, and I don't. Maybe I'd contact them. There's a Fallen Timbers just outside of Shiloh, where Nathan Bedford Forest was.
Mm-hmm.
In the American Battlefield Trust video, there was a Civil War trail sign, so that's how I found the site. And I went out there this past trip a couple weeks ago, and there was nothing there. So I don't know if the sign got damaged or removed. But yeah, that was really the only one that I've tried to go to, and it wasn't there. So I don't know. Do they have like a brochure of where they are? Like, I'm just not entirely familiar.
Yeah, so if you go to the website, civilwartrails.org, they have a brochure, but the best thing about that website, for me personally, is they have an interactive map that you can actually click on, get the GPS coordinates, and then it takes you directly to the spot.
That's invaluable.
Unfortunately, for sites like you're talking about that may or may not be there, there are times that I have gone out on the trails and have GPS myself to a location, and then all of a sudden I'm around and I find that there's 2 or 3 other signs out there that are not on the GPS coordination, and it's primarily because they no longer have the funding to keep those things going. And realistically, how the stuff works with Civil War trails is you'll have a piece of land that's set aside for a sign. The guys will go out and do the work, and then somebody actually sponsors that sign, and the historian puts the information on it. So they do tons of research to put as much information in the sign as possible. And those signs are loaded with information about things that just really aren't covered. For example, when I went to Sussex, Virginia to cover the war crimes that happened in Sussex, you can actually follow a trail of signs out there and get bits and pieces of the information from those signs. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is cool. Yeah, I was excited, and I got out there. I was like, dang it. I mean, it was cool to still be there, knowing with some of the information, knowing what happened. But yeah, I was really looking forward to kind of covering that site. But yeah, it wasn't there. So I don't know, maybe something like you said, maybe funding. Maybe I'll reach out to them. And do you know if they take donations? How does that work?
Yeah, they do, and usually it's in small quantities. The donations are, but but the website for sure is, if you get the information out there and tell people about Civil War trails, that's also something that's very valuable to them, because it brings a lot of attention to those signs, and it makes it easier for them to draw the funding and to get people to those signs. So, so you're out there on the field and you're trying to film, and something happens. What's like a golden moment that you've got, something that you can PG-13 tell to the audience that's happened out there doing some filming?
God, is it bad that there's just such a long list?
No, it's not.
So this is my third year. Obviously, it being my third year, I'm way more comfortable talking in front of the camera. I don't really care if there's people. I do try to stay out of people's way. I don't want to, walk in front of a sign or something like that. But like I said, my biggest thing is you hit record, completely forget how to talk. My buddy Dustin, who is in the comments, he went out to Shiloh with me, and he can attest to simple words being just huge obstacles for me. Sometimes you have tech issues, that you can't really help. Like I had a battery, GoPro battery. I used a GoPro for my B-roll. We got to 50% and it just kept shutting off the camera. Like I couldn't get past 50%. And I was like, oh, maybe there's something wrong with the camera. Popped another battery and it was completely fine. So you always have little things like that. I always seem to find where the sun is and then point the camera directly into the sun. You would think after 3 years I would learn that. I've done whole scenes with my mic off. So you kind of have to reshoot it. And naturally, when you reshoot something, it's never as good as the first time. But yeah, it's a lot more than just going to a site and hitting record. I know it seems really simple, but man, it is, this whole process is awesome. Like I enjoy all of it, even though it's really stressful at times. It is my hobby, and it's really cool being at home doing the research, kind of scripting an episode. You have a vision for it. You go out to the site and, you hit some hiccups, but you create the content, then you come home and you put it together and it's like, oh, all right, I
Yeah.
did it.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I did.
it's a challenge.
Check it off the block. Yeah, and then at the same time, like sometimes I'll get through with a video and I'll get this feeling like, man, this is the video. This is the one.
This is the one.
Everybody's gonna want to see this video. And then it's boo straight into the tank. You just sit there and flatline for months. Have you had a experience like that yourself?
Yeah, I mean, you do a video and you feel really good about it. You're like, "Man, this is a pretty compelling story." And obviously, like I said, I cannot, through sitting down and editing them and hear my own voice constantly.
Yeah.
I don't really watch my videos. You know, I obviously proof watch them and things like that. But once they're up, I don't pay attention to them. But you always feel good, like, oh, yeah, this is a good story. People will really like this one. And then sometimes they don't take off, and sometimes they're not well received. Sometimes they just don't get a lot of attention. One of my worst videos, it literally, like I'm telling you, it really makes me nauseous. It's awful. Awful, but it gets views every day. It's the most popular video. There's mistakes in it. I was very new to this. The editing is terrible. Oh man, it's bad, but it's my most popular. It won't stop getting views. I'm like, stop
Yeah.
that. Watch
Yeah.
this one instead.
Yeah. Yeah. My most popular video right now is me basically walking around in a circle in a location telling people that the place looks pretty cool. And
Yeah, I think I used
it
school
has
in mine like 15 times.
yeah,
And
yeah,
people
yeah.
let me know too.
Oh yeah. No, when I first started out, I had a cell phone in my hand. You
Yep.
know, I'm watching all of this stuff happening. I'm watching what JD's doing, and I'm like, oh man, I can do this. I can figure this stuff out. I got a cell phone. This thing is super advanced. So I pull out my iPhone and I'm recording myself. And now that I look back on those videos, I'm like, man, that was ugly. It was wobbly. It was
Mhm.
terrible. I mean, you could see like laser beams shooting through my ears. It was just really out there and ugly. But it's kind of funny how, you know, whenever you first start this stuff and you start creating videos, that you really think you know what you're doing until you figure out you just don't.
No,
And I really
you're
think it's a practice.
yeah, you learn. It's a process. You learn something every single day, no
Yeah.
matter how long you do it. I'm sure there's things that JD and Chris from Blogging Through History. I'm sure the American Battlefield Trust learns things
Yeah.
on their videos. But yeah, you learn something new every day. Like I said, angles and how to story tell. That, like I said, that's my biggest goal. It may not be the best video, but hopefully I can establish a connection with the viewer and they can truly see my passion. When you see me on the field, it's not an act. It's me like trying to be as genuine as possible. And, these stories are just, they're hard to fathom sometimes. That's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to convey is, these are sacred sites and they're peaceful today, but man, they were the sites of just unimaginable things. And if I can just get us to get a glimpse of that now,
Yeah.
it's for all of us to learn this was a very terrible time in our country. That's the main goal. So hopefully that's coming across.
Oh yeah, and I really think it is. And you know, the thing that really brings it home to me, and if anybody out there is watching this and they want to get a feeling for what it's like to be a soldier or sailor involved in combat or any of that stuff, just sit down and read the words of the people that are in the fight.
Mm-hmm.
Read their letters back home. Read the stuff that they're talking to their families about, because those things are the tools that I like to use to tell a story about a soldier that's fighting at Gettysburg, for example. Um, but realistically, you got to put yourself in the shoes of those people. You know, I know, for example, that when you go into a place where you think that you may not be safe, and maybe you're writing a letter back home, or in today's society, an email back home,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to put all the information in there. You're
Yeah.
not going to tell them every little detail about how terrible things are. You're just going to write to them and let them know, you know, things may not turn out great, but lots of love. Hope I see you on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And when reading those letters, that's the most compelling thing to me. One of the most compelling stories that I read recently was about a soldier that was in Spotsylvania that died. And I did a video with a Dennis Gallahan that owns a portion of land where the young man was shot. And in that story, there's a letter that I read that comes from him that he's writing while he's on his deathbed, and he only dies just a couple of days later. But he is just as cool as a cucumber in his letter, telling his father that he knows he's going to die, but that he hopes that he can see him on the other side. Do you have anything like that that's touched you in the process of all of this?
I mean, yeah, I mean, you, I had an ancestor that fought in the 80th New York. You know, the weird thing is I've been to the sites where he's literally fought at, and I had no idea until recently. He's at the cornfield in Antietam. He was Biddle's Brigade right on McPherson's Ridge. He was kind of a little further down from the copse of trees on the third day. And then he mustered out in the winter of '63 into the Veteran Reserve Corps. And, you know, I don't know what he looks like. I don't have any personal correspondence from him. But, you know, when you read other letters and other, you know, firsthand accounts from the soldiers in that general area, you get a taste of my daughter just went. Hi.
I'm sorry.
Hi, you're good.
It's okay. It's totally
I
okay.
love you. Yes. She likes her ancestor as well.
That's good. That's good.
But yeah, you excuse me, when you view those firsthand accounts, you know, you get a taste of what he went through. And you know, there's another one. There was two best friends killed in the wheat field with the 6th Wisconsin.
Yeah.
It was an emerging Civil War article, actually. And they were in the same company. They enlisted together. They were friends before the war. And then naturally, they were both killed in the wheat field within seconds of each other.
Yeah.
And then they're buried together. I think they were buried in the same grave. One of the family members came back and tried to re-exhume them. They were obviously all, they decomposed together, and now they're buried together in the Antietam Cemetery. So it's just, you know, one of those, they grew up childhood friends and now they're resting eternally together. And it's just, you know, things like that are just, you know, these are ordinary people that were put in a terrible situation. And, you know, that could have, if we were alive during that time, most likely we would have been in those situations. So it really kind of puts things in perspective.
It really does. And everybody was enveloped in that war. You know, this wasn't just something that a few thousand people got together and decided to fight each other in the Civil War. We're talking the majority of the United States was involved in the American Civil War.
Oh, yeah.
It touched every single home across America, no matter what.
White House.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I think Miss Lincoln had a family member killed at Shiloh. Of course, Benjamin Helm at Chickamauga. I think Lincoln had a few close friends. President Lincoln had a few close friends killed. Elmer Ellsworth. And then the senator at Ball's Bluff, his name eludes me. But yeah, they were close friends. That's in the beginning of the war, and they're already being affected personally. It's, you know, truly touched every community, every family. It was truly a civil war.
Yeah, it definitely was. You know, with these places comes kind of crazy situations. A lot of people go out there and they talk about having a spooky situation happen to them, or feeling something in a certain place. Is there any place like that where you might have had some sort of an experience or something that you just couldn't explain?
No, I've never personally experienced anything of that nature. The biggest thing that always jumps out to me is just how eerily quiet and peaceful these places are. You know, I always when I go to a site, of course, you're trying to get as much content as possible because you're on a time constraint, but I'm also trying to set some time aside to, you know, enjoy where you're at. You know, when you're at Devil's Den, you know, that's even if a battle wasn't there, that's a very unique area.
Yeah.
But you know, that's the thing that always stands out to me that kind of gives me the chills, is just how peaceful it is today. And then you envision it 160 years ago, and we see the famous photographs and things like that. So that's really what sticks with me.
Okay. Yeah. So, you know, even with that though, I mean, you go to these places and you get that silence, and we cover this stuff because of how important it is to us. Mm-hmm. But with life being so quick, with it being so fleeting, why do you think it is that a lot of us feel so connected to this history that we think it's so important that we must tell those stories?
I think it's because every single one of us, even if you're not interested in history, every single one of us is connected to the past, whether you had ancestors or you had family in, Desert Storm or the War on Terror or Vietnam, the Civil Rights Movement, World War II. I mean, we're all, no matter what the event is, the women's suffrage movement, you have some sort of connection to it along the line. And I think that's what separates history from all the other subjects, because, you can learn math and numbers, but history is real. History actually happened. History gets a day older every day. And if we don't keep these memories alive, and if we don't learn from these past mistakes, we're, not to be cliche, but you're probably doomed to repeat them, because, these things actually happened, and, their lessons are right there in black and white for us. So that's why, preservation is important. Learning from the past is important. I think every content creator out there in the history realm, they all have their place, whether you have 5 subscribers, 100,000, 500,000, doesn't matter. We all have our part to play, and it's up to us to really learn from these mistakes and keep these memories alive.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. So if you had to recommend a video on your channel to somebody to watch, if they're only going to get to watch one, what video is it?
Oh man, that's tough, because like I said, they make me nauseous. One I really enjoyed doing, I enjoyed the 26th North Carolina at Gettysburg. I covered their actions on the first and third day, kind of walking their footsteps as the battle unfolded. That one was pretty neat to learn, especially just how savage the fight was on the first day between them and the 24th Michigan. Of course, my ancestor was kind of in that area, so it's, it kind of pieced it all together for me. Also, I really enjoyed, oh boy, Chickamauga was amazing. But I covered a handful of stories, one of which my buddy Dustin had an ancestor fight in the 89th Ohio.
Okay.
I know you said pick one video, but this one's pretty cool. And we went to the site of the 89th Ohio on Horseshoe Ridge, and he was able to kind of stand in the spot where his ancestor miraculously survived. Most of the regiment was killed, wounded, or captured. They were one of the 3 that kind of got left behind and essentially enveloped. So that was a pretty cool experience to not only be at that spot, but be there with a direct descendant from someone from that regiment. So I would say those 2, the 26th North Carolina or the 89th Ohio at Chickamauga.
Awesome. That's good. Yeah. That's good. And favorite battlefield, what do you got?
Oh man, I suffer heavily from recency bias, and I just came from Shiloh. Shiloh was incredible.
Oh yeah.
Man, Gettysburg's in its own category. So, you know, it's separate. I would say Chickamauga.
Okay.
I really like Chickamauga. It's chaos and confusing. But, you know, I've been there a handful of times, and it's kind of coming together for me. So it's nice to go there, and, you know, you have the Florida connection there, especially from St. Augustine. So I really like Chickamauga. Antietam's a close second.
Okay. Yeah, Antietam is amazing too.
What about you?
You know, so for me, I mean, it's kind of a combination of places. Gettysburg, Spotsylvania, and then I've always got a place in my heart for Cowpens Battlefield, really.
Okay.
Cowpens isn't something spectacular when you go there. It's not this big, amazing place. It's a big loop circle, and that's it. But
well, that's where Mel Gibson won the American Revolution.
That's it. That's where Mel Gibson beat the entire British Army and Navy.
I saw it. I saw it happen.
Yeah, he definitely did.
Good, that's cool. Yeah, I passed through Cowpens on a recent family trip last year, and like you said, it's not, you know, this grand battlefield, but, you know, it's American Revolution's a very intriguing topic, and it always pulls me in anytime I'm near it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're revolutionary people. That's just the way it is, you know. Mm-hmm. Well, I appreciate you coming on here and you know, spilling the beans about your channel, about some of the mistakes and some of the techniques and all that good stuff.
Of course, I really appreciate you having me. I know we've been trying to align schedules the past few weeks, so I'm glad we finally got to have it. There'll be plenty more mistakes on the way. Hopefully, I catch most of them in the editing process. Every now and then, something slips through. Don't check my spelling. Everyone watching, don't check spelling.
Well, you know, and I always say that I don't have to worry about whether or not I'm telling the truth, because the people watching my videos will let me know.
Exactly. You make a mistake, you're going to know it.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, if you haven't checked him out yet, go check out Project Past. It's an excellent channel. Wonderful videos over there. I watch them myself, and I can't recommend them enough. Go over there and check out those videos.
Appreciate
Thanks
it.
a lot for being on here, and maybe we'll link up one of these days and get to
Soon.
create something together.
I'm going to try and get up that way during the summer, whether it's at Antietam or Gettysburg. But there's a few spots in that area. My ancestor was also at Second Manassas, so.
All right.
Yeah, so I'm definitely going to head up that way during the summer, and then obviously I'll let you know. So it'd be
All
cool
right.
to link up.
Yeah, that sounds good. We'll get a coffee.
Yeah, man. I need
All right.
caffeine.
That's it. All right, everybody. We'll see you around, and until next
everybody.
time, you know where to come back on, and we'll have another live stream coming up actually tomorrow with Paul Woodage from World War II TV
Awesome.
at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So come on back and check that out tomorrow. We'll see you then.
I couldn't think of a better place to end this video than right here in the middle of the woods, the Battle of the Wilderness, at the hotly contested Brocken Plank Road, Orange Plank Road. Not too far in that direction, Longstreet's wounded. Right here where I'm at right now is a place where men like Wadsworth and Hayes end up losing their lives. Families lose loved ones. Soldiers burn to death in these fields around me here. If you let these fields do it, they'll touch your soul.